No.
We'll do it live. Fuck it. Do it live. I'll write it and we'll do it live.
Hello everyone and welcome to this presentation of the USair 1493 and Skywest 5569 disaster at LAX Airport, February 1st, 1991. My name is Morten Storm and I'm doing this in one take, so if I stumble upon some words sometimes, just bear with me guys. This is a disaster which happened between the Boeing 737, which is the USair 1493, and a Metroliner turboprop aircraft, which is the Skywest 5569, at LAX at night time in 1991, of course, as you can see. There was 89 people aboard the Boeing aircraft, the Boeing 737, and eventually 23 persons died. What happened is overall that the Boeing 737 collides with the Metroliner as the Metroliner is holding on the runway. The Boeing 737 lands on the runway 24 left, collides straight into it and crashes into an abandoned fire building, as you can see on the picture. Now, what actually had happened is that the tower controller had cleared the Skywest to taxi and hold onto the runway, and also cleared the USair to land on the runway. So obviously this is a main focus of the whole investigation. Why did the controller clear both aircraft for the same runway? And also that's why it's interesting for us, I think, as ATC students. Now the USair 1493 had Captain Colin Shaw on board. He was one of the 23 people that died. He had 16,000 flight hours. First Officer David Kelly, 4,300 flight hours. The Skywest 5569 had 12 people on board that all died, and their captains and the first officer also had a lot of flight hours, so obviously experienced pilots, and it turns out they actually just did what they were told. Now I'm gonna start out by just showing a short video that is an animation of the crash, so just take a look. Yeah, very dramatic music, but just to give you a visual of what happened. Now, what's very important is that at LAX Airport in 1991, they have 4 separate runways, which are all parallel, and in order for you to get from the runway 24 right to the terminal area, you have to cross 24 left. So as you can see at the top of your screen here, the runways in which the incursion happened was runway 24 left. But just before the accident happened, a Westwing 5006 had landed on runway 24 right. Now they had to cross runway 24 left, as I just said, to get to the terminal area, and the controller, which we will just take a look at now, is Robin Wascher, local tower controller. She wanted to cross this aircraft before landing the USair 1493, and also before departing the Skywest 5569, which is the Metroliner. So controller Robin, as we'll call her from now, she calls up the Westwing 5006, but they do not answer. They actually don't answer for a whole minute. She tries to call them up 4 times, and meanwhile she will instead taxi the Skywest 5569 onto the runway and instruct them to hold, which they do, and you can follow their route here by the red dotted line. Now Westwing 5006 come back to the controller after a minute and say that they not on purpose, well, unpurposely, if that's a word, they changed to the wrong frequency. They come back and apologize, and she finally taxis them across the runway. So she taxis this aircraft 5006 into the terminal. And now also, while all of this is going on, another aircraft, Westwing 5072, as you can see here, it says awaiting takeoff in the top right. They call up saying ready for departure, and Robin is confused because she actually does not have a strip for this aircraft. So what happens is that she says, are you at full length? And they say affirmative, we are at full length and we are ready for departure. Now she, Robin, actually admitted under oath while in the trial that at this point, and also just to note, the Westwing 5072 is also an aircraft that's very similar to the Metroliner. So at this point she actually thinks that the aircraft that she has cleared onto the runway, the Skywest 5569, is actually the Wings-West holding here at the full length at just before 24 left. So due to this, she now actually for some moments believed that the runway is clear, and just after this, USair 1493 call up and she gives them clear to land. It's also important to note that, as you can tell, this was a stressful situation for the controller, and USair 1493 had actually called up twice before, and so they were on short final and they had to get a landing clearance now, or they had to make a missed approach or go around. So yeah, that's pretty much what happened. Now there are some different things that could have helped Robin in this situation, so we'll just look at those. First of all, it's obviously a bad situation that Wings-West 5006 are not on the frequency and that she has to spend a minute trying to call them up. It's also a big time waster that she does not have a strip for Wings-West 5072. She actually says in the trial that she has to go to a supervisor to get it, and that takes a lot of her time. Now, also she cannot actually see Skywest 5569 as they are holding in this intersection right before the runway, and maybe also on the runway, because of a glare from a light tower around this area here, if you can see my mouse. They actually find out in their report, which we can take a look at here, that there has been previous incidents where with runway incursions, and after these, the tower actually reported that they had trouble seeing some of the intersections, especially this one, which was used because of the glare from a light tower. So that's also very unfortunate. Also, the ground radar on LAX was down. This has been an issue apparently in the airport for a long time, that it was sometimes on and sometimes off, and that could also obviously have saved Robin. So it's just your classic, you can say, Swiss cheese model, where if one of these things had not been gone wrong, then there probably would not have been the accident and we would probably have saved lives. So in the report they also take a look and see that there are actually a lot of runway incursions happening at LAX compared to other airports. There were just 7 months prior, there was this DC-10 that flew just over an Airbus on the same runway, well, on a runway in LAX anyway. And this is not where the picture is from, this is just to show a runway incursion. Then there's the whole question of, couldn't the pilots see the aircraft, the pilots of the USair Boeing 737? So the NTSB actually took a helicopter and flew it up to the position that the 737 was at on the final, and they placed a Metroliner on the runway at the same darkness at nighttime, and they could not see the Metroliner at all. So they were wondering, well, didn't they have lights on? And it turns out, no, they did not, because it was not required at the time to have the slope lights on at all until they had a departure clearance. So, as we move on to the recommendations here from the report, one of them is also to make it mandatory to turn on all lights on the runway, at least the slope lights. So yeah, so that changed now. They made it mandatory after this. Also, one of the major recommendations was that they used segregated runways for departure and takeoff at LAX. Now, you would think that after something like this happens, they would change that, but they did not for 9 years. We'll get back to that. Also, they recommended that they change the strip procedure, because the procedure at the time was that there was another controller that had to take the strips and then give them to the tower controller, and this, well, didn't really work that well, so now they changed it so that the tower controller got the strips directly, so that they would always have the strips available. That's how I understand it. Also, they recommended obviously fixing the ground radar, which was done, and also they made it, yeah, we just took the mandatory one. They also recommended fixing the whole tower line of sight issue, well, line of sight and the tower glare thing, because actually they did not have the best overview, but that was not what should not have played part in this. They think it was mostly the light tower thing. But anyway, 5 years later, they built a new tower in LAX, which was better and taller and should solve these problems at least. Some other things, I've written trivia here, it could be facts as well. There was no voice recorder on the Metroliner at the time, which could have helped in the investigation, but it was not required at the time, and now it is. So they changed that as well. Now, as I just said, it took, well, I said 9 years, but it took 13 years to implement segregated runways. Actually, it took an incident in 2004 where a Boeing 747 was 60 meters above a Boeing 737 on the runways. And then, as I just said, they actually, in LAX, they have one of the highest runway incursion rates in the world. So, I mean, I think it's fair to say that it was about time that they changed that. Also, another, I don't know if it's fun, but a fact, the Vancouver Canucks and NHL team was actually in an airplane right behind USair 1493, and they actually landed after them and quickly got off the runway. But they were very shook up after this event, and they actually lost the following day 9-1 to the Los Angeles Kings, and it was the worst defeat ever at this point. So yeah, I think it's important for us to learn, and that we did as an aviation industry after this, that we need to take it serious when controllers say that they are too stressed and they have issues that are actually safety issues, because they found out actually that, as I think I said, that they had was this incident 7 months prior, and they actually had reported a lot of these issues. One of the things that they reported was also that they felt that their controllers were overloaded and had too many things to do, but it was not, I guess, taken seriously enough for something to be done. So yeah, if anyone has any questions, they're very welcome to ask. And also there is a Mayday episode on this accident, which is season 9, episode 4, I believe. So if anyone is interested, you can go have a look at that. Just at the end, Robin Wascher, she quit her job after this, and she was never to control aircraft again. Yep, thank you guys.